Hi guys, so today I want to show you our ideas for where we're potentially going to put our garden on our new property. So I tried to think ahead, I tried to plan ahead and plot things out in a way that's going to make a lot of logical sense, where basically doing the zones of permaculture and things of that nature. But on this property, there's really not a good place to put the garden that is in a space that we're going to frequently walk by. Because our chickens, they hop over every single fence. Like the chickens, their house and a camper on the other side of the barn. It's kind of right through the house here. Obviously not in the house. And they lay eggs inside of Burr and Ferdy's hut all of the time. So they have to hop over 4 fences to get to that hut to lay their eggs there. So every day is pretty much just like an Easter egg hunt. So I didn't really want the chickens to be anywhere near the garden. At our last property, we didn't have any issues with them getting into the garden because it was pretty far away from the barn. But here they feel much more comfortable to forage a lot more and to expand their range. Yeah, I also did not want to have it anywhere near where Lucky the goat could see me, because he would then just continually just jump out of the garden or jump out of his pasture to then get in the garden to come see me and also get all of the garden goodies. So those were things we had to keep into consideration. There was a nice flat area in the front that we thought, this would be a nice convenient place to have a garden. Problem with that was it's pretty wet there. Second problem with that is I really don't like gardening on a flat surface. Like, I learned that at our last property that I actually hated it because there was nowhere for the water to go. So when it's real wet, real rainy, that sort of a thing, or if your property is naturally really wet, picking a garden in a flat area is a horrible idea because it just is soupy, soggy, wet, and you can't till it. You have to wait so much longer. It's a pain. So when considering all of that stuff, the only place that we could figure out to put the garden is actually on the right side of the property. So our property is shaped like a heart emoji. So it's basically the front right or the top right, then like ventricle side, whatever, of the heart is where we're going to actually put the garden space. So right in here is where the garden's going to go, which I kind of was nervous about that whenever I burnt a bunch of stuff that was left at the house here. I was like, this might end up being garden space one day, but it is what it is. Maybe I'll build a greenhouse there or something. I don't know. But so I tried to think ahead to figure out like locations of animals and things of that nature for how to make the most efficient homestead possible. So with permaculture, you want things that you need to visit all the time to be really close to the house and a pathway that you normally walk. So I mean, from a permaculture perspective, like, don't mind our toilet in the backyard. Like, this place was a major fixer-upper. Still is. Like you guys can see, active construction zone. So from a permaculture perspective, because I normally walk out the back door to go to the barn, it would make logical sense to put the garden somewhere right in here that I'm going to be walking past all of the time. But like I said, chickens are in that camper there. They have a little pasture space that they don't abide by. Goats are over here. There's goats over here and ducks back behind the barn. Like everywhere, that I pretty much just go all over the place every day. But so the only logical place that would actually work with all of those things in consideration of what we're already doing is to put the garden over in here. So the rabbits are also something that we use their manure pretty frequently on the garden. Everything that we do is like super ultra purist. Like, I don't buy amendments at the store ever. I figure that if we can't grow it, then we're not meant to grow it. If we can't improve the soil to make a condition that we can naturally and easily grow something, then it's just not meant for us to grow it. I want to grow stuff that actually will grow in our climate, will grow on our property, and that will thrive, because like, why fight nature? So in saying that, we put the rabbit tractors, which they need some work. They need rebooted, redone, rebuilt, all that sort of a thing, which is a project for another time. We put the rabbit tractors all over in here, so then that way, every time that it rains, the water from the roof would come down, and they're several feet away from the barn here. So the rain drops down over in here, and then it washes underneath of their tractors, which they're up on cement block. So then that way we're basically creating poo tea every single time that we have moisture, that we have rain, because they're pooing and peeing and it's going underneath of here, and then the water is rushing down. So the nice thing that I like about gardening on a hill is that when you have a front tine tiller, you can take the tines of the tiller right on the hillside and basically on contour create garden beds. So then they're essentially raised beds if you stand on the downhill side of them to work the beds. So it makes it really easy to transition into building the beds up, because we do deep litter method with our goats. We also, use the manure and all of the hay and all of that stuff after it's broken down further. and we just pile it on top, and then eventually it works into a no-till system. Whenever you're starting a new garden, you pretty much have to till it to start it. Like it's unless if you got tons and tons of time, which we do not. It's already March in Ohio. Like soon it's going to be time to start seeds, and a lot of people, they've already started tomato seeds and pepper seeds. We're not starting those seeds this year. We just don't, just moving in and all that stuff. We don't have time. We don't have the space. We don't have the energy. But we are going to start like everything else from seed. That's quicker. But so a lot of garden stuff actually happens in the fall. So I had already prepped the gardens at the old house because we didn't know if we'd be able to find a property, if we'd be able to move, blah, 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 blah. So I'm kind of behind the gun. So I'm going to have to till. I'm going to have to do that. The soil in this area, the previous owner actually had a horse in this front barn, and the access point for the horse was right over here. So the soil in this area, it's actually very nicely aerated. And it's really dark in color. So like anytime that I've done any digging in this vicinity, it is very healthy soil. It's nice that it's close to the stream. You guys can probably hear the stream. It's been very wet the last several days, so it's been great to get out and walk the property, to look around, to see like where wet spots are. Like over in here is a big wet area. So the garden for this year is probably going to stay pretty well located just on the hillside, so that way I can observe and see how wet the property stays. So this year the garden's going to be pretty modest. I say that, but I always overdo everything. I always go way bigger, way larger, stronger, whatever than I anticipate. So it's probably going to be one of those things that just spirals out of control. But that's okay. So on the hillside is where we're going to do most of the garden. Down in this area here, kind of by the walnut tree there, it is drier because of the roots of the tree and whatnot. There is the last 3 places that we've had a garden, there's been a black walnut tree right by the garden. So I've done a lot of research, a lot of workarounds to not combat, but to work alongside of the toxins that the black walnuts release and stuff. There's a lot of plants that can't grow around them, like nightshades, like tomatoes, peppers, potatoes. They don't really like growing around black walnut trees, but anything that's in the brassica family does fine. Zucchinis, squashes, pumpkins, that sort of thing, they do perfectly fine. So like in this general vicinity over in here, I can do all of those things and just make it so that way my tomatoes are up closer to the rabbits. So the tomatoes will obviously, they'll really enjoy all the excess rabbit manure and stuff. But I think this is gonna be a nice spot for the garden. So in terms of mobility issues, it is a little bit concerning to be working on the hillside here just for future proofing our homestead. But I think eventually the garden is going to expand into this more flat area here. So it isn't too bad of a hill to get up to the house. You guys can see it's just, I don't know, probably 8 feet in elevation from where I'm standing now, which is, kind of the bottom of the hill. So it's not too big of a hill. It's not too steep. It's not too anything. So for the next, foreseeable future, it shouldn't be too difficult for Tracy or I to work the garden, to be in the garden, to carry produce in and out of the garden. But there is a nice little bit of a contoured path that we can just take. And, as time goes on, whenever you kind of like how there's this path here from the previous owner's horse, you can see it just keeps going. And that's sort of right on contour to make the easiest walkway there. So anytime that you walk the same path a whole bunch of times over and over and over again, especially during the wet season, it ends up creating kind of like a bit of a berm, which is essentially what the garden beds are going to look like. So eventually in between the garden beds, there will end up being flat walkways just because of runoff and blah, 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 and our footsteps and all that stuff. So eventually it'll be nice and easy to navigate this, to walk it, to do different things. Plus, whenever it becomes time to use the tiller, I can do quite a bit of earth moving with the rototiller that I have, just because it is small. Front tines, they beat the tar out of you when you're using them. But if you're strong enough and big enough to manhandle them, you can do a ton of earthworks of moving a lot of stuff. When we lived in the camper several years ago, I was able to use the tiller and do some experimental, just kind of like back forever ago. God, I think it's like in the 30s or something like that. It was during the Depression era time. A lot of properties, they did, I gotta set you guys down. Hold on. A lot of properties, they changed a lot of the topography on them, where there was like steep hillsides and stuff. They basically created like berms and swales to then make it so that way there wasn't so much erosion of soil. That's essentially what I'm going to do here, and it's really easy to do with a tiller. You just keep going and it just pulls it all down. So it's just I'll end up filming whenever I do end up tilling. Hopefully my body will be recovered from surgery at that point. If not, I'm going to have to really try to find somebody that's good at listening and taking direction as to how to do it the way that I want it to be done. But so yeah, it's not going to be too big of a trouble to do that. It'll be basically kind of how I think it's in Peru, where they, like the Aztecs that did the step gardens on steep hillsides. I really like that method of growing because you always know where the water is going. You always know where to shed the water. You always know which plants to put that are going to get the most water and all of that stuff. When you're farming or trying to grow a garden on flat land, like it is just, if it's a wet property, like it's a nightmare. It's a living nightmare to have flat property, flat land if you have a waterlogged property. Unless if you're going to do raised beds and you have the money to build them up pretty quickly. And that just takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, or a lot of money if you want to do that quickly, which that's not our method. Everything that we do, we try really hard to make sure that we're not bringing anything onto the property that we can't thrive with. So that's part of why we choose the livestock that we do. We don't want anything that's too hard on the land. That's why we, do the things we do. So anyways, that's it for today. I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a tour as to what our plans are and stuff, because right now I've been working on moving manure from the previous owner's chickens, and then here soon I got to clean out the camper coop to get that manure and just get things started, get things rolling and stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.